Stella Teleria, author of the novel Across the Wire, and I'm here to do a reading from the novel. This reading is coming from Chapter 7 called Operation Sandpaper, and it is from the perspective of Evan. He turned the rod, twisting the cloth around it. The unbelievable happened. The bars creaked and bent. The wet cloth was bending the bars. I sat up straighter. Laborers gasped. My mouth went dry. This man knew a few tricks. He untied the cloth, wet it again, and worked on the next 2 bars. The metal creaked, and the gap grew large enough for a man to squeeze through. He had bent the bars with items I could have smuggled into the cell from the mine. The hope, which I had suppressed for so long, soared. These men were going to get us out of here. I thanked the goddess. "Hurry," the first man said, moving aside. 2 of the strangers went outside. The laborers squeezed through the gap in the bars one by one, following the men in black out the door. Some stayed back, unsure of the outside. Those laborers had been at the mine as long as, or longer than I had. All I knew was the mine, and the thought of leaving scared me too. But they would have to get out of my way because I'd get out of this cage if I had to knock them over to do it. I gulped down air and managed to keep my heart from exploding. I tried to stand. The pillory scraped the ground. My legs faltered. I fell. Comprehension and the ground hit me. Gavin looked at me. "You okay?" "I'll never fit with this thing." He glanced from the bars to the contraption around my neck. The pillory was twice the width of the gap in the bars. His face went white. He scoured the device, searching for a way to get it off. Yanking at it sent pains down my back. His hands shook. I closed my eyes. There would be no escape for me. As the thought took hold, my eyes stung. So close. If only I'd behaved. But I couldn't have let Gavin be raped. I was not meant to leave this place. Blinking back moisture, I cleared my throat. "Go, Gavin." I had not been able to protect him as I thought I had all those years. The best I could have done for him was get him out of this place. I couldn't do it, but these men could. "Not without you," Gavin said, his eyes wide. "Don't be stupid. Go." I pushed him away from me with my leg. The past few laborers ran by us and through the bars. "Please, he won't fit through the bars," Gavin called out. Holster guy entered the cell through the gap in the bars, followed by one of his men. He crouched down to look at the collar around my neck. "Please help him. Please." Gavin pushed his hair out of his eyes. The armed man placed a finger over his swathed mouth. "Quiet," the other man said. They both prodded the pillory. The holster guy shook his head. A pain in my chest spread, stinging my throat. The goddess would deny me everything. The other man spoke to the holster guy. "We're running out of time." "Leave me," I spat through clenched teeth. The holster guy nodded. "Come with us," the man said to Gavin as the holster guy studied me. Maybe he was mute, but the look in his eyes carried a message. He would take care of Gavin. That's how I read it. Gavin looked down at me, and I nodded. He shook his head. The 2 men dragged Gavin out of the cell with his hands still stretched out to me. They maneuvered him out of the doors and were gone. I was alone. The pain burned through me, and I hoped it would bring, what was the word the centuries used once? Oblivion. Everything hurt. I felt broken, hollow. I wanted to die, to never have existed. Nerves gnawed in my stomach. I felt empty, but nauseated at the same time. Within minutes, the courage I had felt withered and helplessness surrounded me. Gavin was gone. I will die here one day. Anger burned through me as hot as the pain. I clenched my fists and banged the pillory against the ground. It did nothing but send fresh waves of agony through my body. The collar wouldn't break. I collapsed onto the dirt. My chest heaved and pain shot through my side every time I breathed. I strained my ears, heard the faint sound of other cell doors groaning open. The darkness beyond the cell made it impossible to see out the door. I listened harder, held my breath. The padded sound of bare feet on dirt meant more laborers were being freed. I ground my teeth. Don't give up. Looking around the cell, I searched for anything that might break the collar. The bars. Maybe if I wedged the end of the pillory between them, I could twist the hinge. I struggled to get on my feet. While on my knees, someone entered through the first door of the cell. It was the same sentry that had run to the outhouse after me. My heart dropped. Her mouth fell open as she took in the empty cell and bent bars. She turned, headed for the panic button on the wall that would trigger the alarm. It was all over now. I hoped Gavin had gotten out. Something struck the side of the sentry's head. She stumbled, fighting for balance, arms flailing to steady her. The man with the holster appeared from the gloom, hidden in the night by his black clothes, holding a bar in each of his hands. The sentry raised her shock rod. The zing of the charged rod echoed through the cell. The woman shot forward, shock rod in hands, needing contact to electrocute unlike the stun guns. "Look out!" I said. He blocked the woman's attack with his rod. A spark from the shock rod lit the cell for a second. He'd sidestepped her, hooked the sentry's arm back with a rod, and struck her on the forearm. Bone cracked. The sentry screamed. The shock rod dropped from her useless right hand. A second blow knocked the woman out. She crumpled like a heap of rags thrown carelessly against the wall. He slipped through the bars and crouched next to me while he tucked the rods into a belt at his hip. How did he know how to fight like that? "You came back," I stared at him. He reached for his neck and pulled the swath off his head. Comprehension slammed me in the face. The man with the holster was a woman. I flinched away from her. She looked me straight in the eye, and I couldn't look away. Her gaze held me like the collar around my neck. There was no resisting. I was that shocked. "Listen, I'm going to get you out of here. What's your name?" Her hands rested on the wood around my neck. A cough racked through me. I couldn't get enough air. Felt like a serrated knife stabbed me in the side with each hack. Her hands went to my face. Her touch startled me. Her fingers laced through my dirty beard. I twitched again, uncomfortable with the contact, but the look on her face told me she was serious. "What's your name?" "Eben," my response came out like a croak, but the cough died. "Eben," she said, and somehow my name sounded different when she said it. "I'm Mia, and I'm not leaving without you." Her dark hair was pulled away from her face. Arched eyebrows framed her almond-shaped eyes. Her high cheekbones accentuated those eyes, and her skin glowed like honey in the dim recessed light coming from the corners of the cell. She was pretty. She looked at the contraption around my neck and pulled something out of her holster. It was small, black, and metal. It looked like an extremely small version of a stun gun, but the end was too small to launch a shock disc. She gripped it tightly in her hand. "This is going to be real loud, and everyone's going to hear it. You need to run." She looked at me with an intensity I'd never seen. It made me feel important somehow. Running had always meant death, but she had me thinking otherwise. Hadn't I prayed for this? Had the goddess sent this woman? My mouth turned dry. I thought about Kino, and didn't care what waited on the other side of those bars: torture, death, wilderness, or another labor camp. I can do it. She knelt close. The black metal thing in her hand was pointed at the hinge on the collar. She pressed my ear to her shoulder, covered my other ear with her hand, and bent her head over mine, shielding me. From what? I didn't know. The embrace was more intimate than any I'd known. It made me uncomfortable. She smelled like soap and pine needles. Irrationally, I wish I didn't smell so bad. I closed my eyes, afraid of this thing she held so close to my head. She said it would be loud. Would it hurt? Don't trust her. It was too late. A flash of light and a loud bang like an explosion made me jump. My heart hammered and my ears buzzed. Mia pulled the collar off me. It clattered to the ground. Everything was muffled. I rubbed my ears. She covered them for protection, sheltered me with her body. Me, a slave. Why? "Hurry," she said. The explosion still had me hearing funny. She touched me, helped me up, but I flinched, expecting her to hit me. I put all my energy into my aching legs. My heart pumped. The pain in my legs was less than I expected. I squeezed through the bars and followed Mia. Outside, unconscious or dead sentries littered the ground. What had she done? My legs were weak, but I ran faster. I glanced over my shoulders. The light of the main building flickered on. In moments, Fiona would come with more sentries. Sounds were muffled, but a loud noise pulsed. The alarm. Mia disappeared over the embankment, past the poles I'd hung on all day. The motor of a vehicle purred to life. I reached the top of the mound. A hover truck came into view. It was one of the camp's vehicles. I panicked at the sight of it. One of Mia's men dressed in black drove the vehicle. I'd never seen a man drive. Another man was kneeling in the back of the hover truck. But maybe they weren't men. Maybe there was only one man, the one who spoke, so we would all go along with their plan. Maybe that was why she'd stayed quiet. My heart hammered. I didn't care. I just wanted out of the mine, and they were my opportunity.